dangerous. A lot more dangerous than
That's all I'm thinking of. I want to send it back down to her.
It's a lot more dangerous.
What
I videotaped
what
it
did you
too.
not have? You couldn't have got from me.
Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everybody and welcome those at home who are viewing this on PAC 14 to the December 7th Special City Council meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If during this meeting there is an emergency, there are exits to our right as you leave the room and proceed down the stairs. Please do not use the elevators, and if you need assistance, please let us know. And if you would mind, please, everyone, silence your cell phones, and if you need to make a call, please do it outside the room. Thank you. At this point, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the legislative agenda.
So moved.
Have a motion, sorry.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, chair votes aye. I would entertain a motion to approve the November 23rd, 2015 regular meeting minutes.
So moved.
No, I oppose. Because on the minutes we
We've
have,
got to get a motion and a
Let's
second.
get a second
then we
and
can
then
discuss
we'll
it.
Second.
take a question. We have a motion and a second to approve. Ms. Jackson?
I oppose. Because you have public officials present. Laura wasn't present at that meeting, and her name is on here as being present at that meeting.
I brought mine up yet.
Can we make that
So we
change?
can, somebody can make a motion to amend by removing her name.
We're doing one.
Can we have a motion to amend the minutes by,
Yes,
Say
so,
moved.
I so moved.
we have a motion and a second to amend the minutes to remove Ms. Mitchell's name. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Opposed? All right, now I'll entertain a motion to accept the revised minutes.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Or we could just vote on the.
Just vote on
We just vote on
Minutes
the
as
original
Once
motion.
the
Revised.
change is made, then
Fine.
the motion's already been.
Thank you.
I like good stuff in here.
All those in favor of the motion to accept the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Good catch.
I would entertain a motion to approve the ordinance 2358 for second reading.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second for to approve ordinance 2358. Any discussion?
Change the amount, or has that already been done?
Presented.
All those in favor,
Wait.
please signify.
Hold on. We're gonna have.
Probably need to have
I'm
it
sorry.
Have someone
presented
present
or
it.
or read, just,
Mark, you're up.
I know. She included it. It's in my packet.
got it if you need
I
it.
should have. Sorry, it went so quickly I wasn't ready.
It did.
It's it, so.
All right, this is an ordinance of the City of Salisbury approving an amendment of the FY 2016 general fund budget to appropriate funds needed to cover the shortfall in the November 2015 elections budget. Whereas the city clerk's office received an estimate from the Wycomico County Board of Elections to administer and conduct the November 3rd, 2015 City of Salisbury elections, and whereas the election district boundaries required pre-programming in the Wycomico County Elections computer system due to the City of Salisbury election redistricting in 2014, which created 5 districts in place of 2 districts. And whereas the city's FY 2016 general fund budget did not include the additional funds for the reprogramming because of the amount of time and skills required to convert the system were unprecedented. Now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Salisbury, Maryland, that the city's fiscal year 2016 general fund budget be and is hereby amended as follows, with an increase in the current surplus available account 01000-469810 by $11,000 and an increase in the elections by an equivalent amount. And I see we have a member here
Yes, we do.
to answer any questions that you may have that I cannot answer.
Council questions?
Several.
For Mr. Gu-
Ms. Gutierrez?
Yeah, not
come
for
up to
you.
the podium, please.
You know, this would be incredibly easy to just vote yay and walk away and say, I'll be home to walk the dog and make dinner, and, you know. But no, it's 2016, and I need an explanation about what reprogramming, because of the amount of time and skills required to convert the system, were unprecedented. This is language that in all of my years, you'd have to tell me what skills, what time, and what was unprecedented. So can you do that for me, sir?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Anthony Gutierrez, Election Director for Wacomico County. Good afternoon, everyone. We were unable in our December, I believe, 2014 planning meeting to give the city clerk an estimate because when the redistricting happened, we had to change the street file in the MD voters statewide voter registration system. And normally we keep up with the city and other municipalities through regular annexations, et cetera. But changing it from 2 districts to 5 took quite a bit of work. We had to look at literally every city and address range within the municipality to ensure that we had it in the correct new district. And our process is to have a data entry team go through and initially enter that, and then to have another data entry team go through and proof it. Of course, accuracy is of the utmost importance. That prevents someone from getting the wrong ballot. And the city clerk, once we finish our work, the city clerk is asked to give a certification that our work has been completed correctly. When we did that, there were a number of questions, correspondence going back and forth. We had to have a couple of meetings with the city clerk and the deputy clerk. I believe she also had to get with her planning department, et cetera. So again, because we haven't faced this, at least in the 9.5 years that I've been election director, we were unable to give an estimate at all of the cost.
Could you, or maybe the city clerk could tell us what some of the questions were? I ask only because it's 2016 and having drawn the lines with the help of the planning department where you could scroll over streets with your mouse and every available amount of information from that census tract came up. Now I know census tract isn't voter registration tract, I understand that, but I'm just trying to get a sense of, my concern is that there are municipalities across the state and across this nation that can do multiple elections in the same year. And we did this well and it worked and we all won. But in looking forward, when knowing that other places can do a presidential election, a county election, a city election, a register of wills election, all of those things at the same time, yet my feeling was we got bogged down in, not bogged down, we got held up in, is this polling place going to pass muster? So I know that there were times where we were behind a little bit because of the things that we had to take care of in terms of finding the 5 districts and getting the 5 places. But I still am concerned as to why all this isn't computerized by now in 2016. So if the clerk could, what were some of the questions that you had to go back and look for, I guess would be my question.
Some of the questions, well, we had a street list created by Public Works that we compared to the list we got from the Board of Elections, and each street had to be verified. Some streets having 3 districts represented, and there were discrepancies in those. Some were shown, I'd have to go back and look at the pile of papers, but some were not listed as being possibly even in the city. I don't know. There's just different, many were say in District 2 and should not have been, or I felt like they shouldn't have been. Every question had to be addressed, or else I wouldn't have been doing my job.
Correct. Oh, I completely agree with that. With the advent of technology and what we use downstairs in planning and zoning with the computer, is it a matter of being able to afford at the county level the software that you need to be able to do this faster?
In a word, resources is that word that we're looking for. In our office, we do not have a GIS terminal, and therefore we do not have staff that is trained in those different ArcView type programs. Certainly that would make the work go so much faster, but no, unfortunately we don't have that in the Wacomico Board of Elections. Second, polling places aside, we're required to get every address set in the correct district. So even though you may have a street that looks like it's the whole block belongs to a certain councilmanic, as you note, census tracts, invisible boundaries, railroad tracks, major utility lines, there's all kinds of different boundaries which can affect where the city boundary lies, and again, trying to interpret where the councilmanic districts also lie. Again, having to do some drive-bys, on some afternoons, kind of calling a list together and spending a little bit of time in the field. It would be much quicker and probably much more efficient if there was an investment at the county level for our office to have that GIS system. So I certainly agree with that point.
So there were some streets that the city listed that weren't on the county because they were not voters on the streets yet, like new developments or almost brand new, maybe not completed yet or whatnot, that had to be addressed. There were just so many different.
That is a very good point to make. Our system is based on when someone actually registers to vote. So you could have a block, a city block, where no one registers to vote, and it's somewhat invisible to our statewide system because no one has filled out that application to register to vote there. But it should be caught in a particular range. But again, these are just individual questions we have.
If you were to go downstairs to Mr. Ennis and take his program that he does when we were redoing the districts, because that really
contact is Frank McKenzie.
Right. I'm sorry, Frank McKenzie. I'm wrong department, wrong entity. Actually, completely. I apologize. Could you take what he has and overlay that over your election maps? Because there are lots of streets where nobody voted. Obviously, with our turnout numbers the way they were, there were lots of streets where nobody voted. There were lots of places on my walk list that had nobody on, they had people, there was nobody on the street because I only got the list of people who voted in the last 2 city elections. So there were lots of streets in my district that didn't have anybody on it. But there's one on Westchester Street. Let's just take Westchester Street just north of my house. Let's not do that. Let's do an easier one. Let's go to Washington Street, which forever was the line between District 1 and District 2. And now it was the line between District 1, District 2, and I think maybe 3 may have curled in there as well. I'm just trying to figure out, when you got that map from the city and it was approved by the city council, I knew which blocks were in District 3 and which blocks were in District 2 and which blocks were in District 1. What's the disconnect between? I want you to have the $11,000, Mr. Gutierrez. I just want us to modernize at this point because we're getting things from you all that say we're not going to be able to provide certain information, precinct information now to us.
Right.
And I'm worried
with regard to the new voting system, that's correct.
That the end result of that is less voter contact when all of us were doing everything we could possibly do, those of us that had to. I looked at Laura. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
But doing everything we can to get to people.
There's
but
actually
it seems as if the system is going to not throw up roadblocks for the voter or for the people that have the money, the GIS money.
Or the candidates who certainly have a stake in this. There is a GIS module component of the statewide system, and I don't know how many other local boards. I would imagine the vast majority have GIS staff in-house. Wacomico County
So
does
if
not.
we were to advocate for you, say at county budget time, I'm sure there are so many people who go to the podium to advocate for the Board of Elections during county budget time. If we were to do that for you, what would you have us say?
I'm more than happy to go back and look at what
Come up with a
package
good
we
paragraph?
could,
Yeah.
and have
Okay.
whatever support we could get.
All right.
Sure, absolutely, before 2019, of course.
Okay.
I guess I just have two things, and I know just to add to like what he was saying, one example on a street is Homer Street. One side of Homer Street was in District 2, the other side was in District 4. So that's kind of like a lot of the streets I understand were like that. The other thing that I saw is when I printed the map out, and I have the streets named, I didn't bring them today, but I have like 3 or 4 streets where on the voter registration, it said Avenue. And then when I'm there, it says street. And so then there's a little confusion. So then I'm using Google Maps to see if there's Carrollton Street, when I think it was actually Carrollton Avenue. I think that was one of them. So there were some things like that I saw just from walking. And then I guess to another point, Mr. Ireton, part of the request, there was an additional cost for $2,225, which is, are we saying the state required you to use a vendor for picking up the voting machines?
That's right.
That's the other, so that's part of that, of what we're asking for. So we now know going forward, they're going to require us to do that, so we can add that in.
Thank you for bringing that point up. This was the last scheduled election. We're going to use the touchscreen legacy system. The state is moving over to a paper ballot-based system for 2016, so the entire municipal election guidelines, including pricing matrix for 2016 and going forward, has not been developed yet. I really don't know when that's going to happen, but again, unfortunately, going from 2 to 5, we didn't have that in our records to give even an estimate to the city clerk. We won't have anything. Well, by 2019, we should. We really should by the time
We
years
have 4
next
years.
come
We
on.
should hear
That's
that.
correct. Yeah, I was thinking 2-year cycle, but
We should figure
yeah,
that
we
out.
should have. But again, at this point, we don't know what that will be. The pricing for all those different items.
Thank you.
Just one comment, to be clear for the public. This was someone going in at least 3 times, twice in your office and once with the clerk, into every voter's record in the city of Salisbury and making sure that based on their address, which side of the street, which end of the street they were on or avenue, that they were labeled as being in the right district, and changing that from a 1 or a 2 to a 1 through 5. Exactly,
and in our industry, every vote counts, and that's exactly how we go through behind the scenes in the preparation to ensure that you are in the correct district, and when you go on election day, you'll get the correct ballot. And it is a 3-step process for your elections, and we're very confident that we do the best we can. In conjunction with the city clerk, she and her deputy do quite a bit of work on that end.
And that's over 10,000 voters, regardless of how many actually came to the polls or not. That's over 10,000 voters.
Right.
Thank you.
And can we add, this is a one-time amount
Yes.
unless you all change the districts.
Right. It hasn't been changed since 1987, so.
Mr. President, can I just add one final thought that, real quick, from my perspective?
Please.
Mr. Ireton made a good point saying, the next time you need some advocates to come to wherever it may be, whether it's county council or whatever, and talk about the needs of your department, Mr. Gutierrez, I think one of them is the location of your operations. And when you need advocates, I'm pretty sure you can get at least 6 of us right here to come talk about why it's okay for you to locate in certain parts of the city of Salisbury. Because the last time there was a proposal, there was a lot of dishonesty about, where you'd be and what the conditions were like, and it was unfair to you, and it was unfair to those neighborhoods in the city of Salisbury that have only gotten safer. So know that I think you've got a bunch of friends and advocates who are there with you on a number of fronts.
Very much appreciated. Thank you.
I'd just like to make a couple of comments. First of all, I appreciate the comments from my fellow councilmen. I do have a question, though. I do agree with what you had just said about the 10,000. My issue is, and I'm looking at it from a more global level, if I read this correctly, the miss is about 30% over the budget, give or take. And I think that with the statement, for instance, of the fact that it took a lot of time to do the individual entries and checks, I believe that, you know, a time study probably would have shown how much time it was going to take to do that amount of work, if in fact it was looked at that way. Because we knew that it was going to require the changing from 2 to 5. We knew that there was going to be a lot of data work. And if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, that the original budget also included a recount or a runoff if we had a runoff. Was that not correct?
No, that's what this
That
original
was gonna be a
budget amendment was,
supplemental.
in
So that
case
was
of
the-
that.
And we didn't have that.
We didn't have that. That's why this is only 11 instead of 30.
Right. The other thing that I wanted to ask was, is the state pickup, did we know that before the election?
I'm sorry, state pickup?
The state
Picking up the
picking up
machines.
the machines, did we know
Oh,
that?
no, and the reason why we didn't know that is because back in December of 2014, we had requested that your election be a pilot election for the new voting system, and the state board came back and they only chose Rockville, city of Rockville. 6 other municipalities were told to go ahead and use the touchscreen. So in fact, our original estimates were based on potential new voting system criteria, and that's why, as you mentioned, the delivery of the touchscreen equipment, that was an unforeseen item that we thought we were going to be piloting the new system, but in fact we were told to use the legacy. And if I could address your first point, one of the things that we do after every election is have a lessons learned meeting with our stakeholders, and we completed that again with the city clerk and her deputy clerk, and one of the things that came out is how can we do budgeting better in the future. So we're going to have an extra budgeting session, again, with that new matrix that will come out surely before 4 years from now, and we'll have a better handle on budget items between the city clerk's office and mine. So we're looking forward to that too.
Good, glad to hear it. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the ordinance, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, Mr. Martinez.
Thank you.
Seeing no other business, at this point in time, I'll declare the meeting adjourned.